The letter arrived too late to save him. By the time his allies read it, the prince who once controlled half of Italy was already dead, not killed by an enemy army, not betrayed on a battlefield, but destroyed by the one thing he never bothered to guard: himself. Machiavelli watched it happen. He wrote it down. And centuries later, almost nobody who climbs toward power reads the warning before they need it. Here's the part that should terrify you. It wasn't the enemies outside the walls that ended him. It was the people he trusted inside them. The friends who got quieter. The advisors who only ever agreed. The moment of temper he let slip in front of the wrong person at the wrong time. Machiavelli didn't just watch one ruler fall this way. He watched it happen again and again and again, until the pattern became impossible to ignore. Success doesn't protect you. It exposes you. So today we're not talking about how to build an empire. Plenty of people will tell you that. Today we're talking about what happens after the part almost nobody prepares for. The part Machiavelli considered far more dangerous than the climb itself. 7 brutal truths about what really happens the second you start winning. Who starts watching you differently. What you need to hide. And why the empire that looks the strongest is often the one closest to collapsing from the inside. Stay until the end. Because the 7th truth is the one that decides whether anything you build actually outlasts you. Let's begin. Number 1. Master yourself before you master anything else. Before Machiavelli ever wrote about armies, alliances, or strategy, he wrote about something far less glamorous: the discipline to control your own reactions. Most people skip straight past this. They chase the money, the title, the followers, the deal, convinced that progress on the outside is the same thing as strength on the inside. It isn't. You can win a room, a negotiation, an entire market, and still be ruled completely by your own temper. And the moment pressure finds that crack, it doesn't matter how much you've built. It cracks anyway. Look at how downfalls actually happen throughout history. Rarely does a rival march in and take everything by force. Far more often, the person hands it over themselves. One comment they couldn't let go. One decision made hot instead of calculated. One flash of anger in front of exactly the wrong witness. Machiavelli saw rulers with armies, treasuries, and loyal followers lose it all, not because someone was stronger, but because they couldn't manage their own reactions when things stopped going their way. Self-control was never about suppressing what you feel. It was about timing. A reaction fired off in the wrong moment costs you more than whatever triggered it ever could. Someone who explodes in public isn't proving strength. They're broadcasting exactly where to press next time. And people remember. They file it away for later. This is why the sharpest people you'll ever meet often look the calmest under pressure that would break someone else. Not because nothing touches them, because they learned that control is a weapon, the same way ambition is one. A person who can absorb an insult without flinching is far more unsettling to an opponent than one who fires back immediately, because nobody can read what the controlled one is actually planning. Build everything else first and skip this step, and you're building on sand. The wind always comes. Someone will provoke you, disrespect you, try to get a reaction just to see what you're really made of. And how you answer that single moment often decides more about your future than any deal you'll ever close. Master yourself first. Everything else is just architecture on top of that foundation. Number 2, never let winning make you careless. Here's what almost nobody warns you about: success is more dangerous than struggle. When you're grinding with nothing to your name, your instincts stay razor sharp. You double-check everything because you have no other choice. But the moment things start working, That alertness starts to erode. Deals get easier. People treat you with more respect. Doors open before you even push. And without noticing it, you start relaxing in exactly the places relaxing gets people destroyed. This is one of the most repeated patterns in Machiavelli's writing. Leaders who clawed their way up through sharp instincts and constant vigilance lost that same position not through one dramatic failure, but through a slow, invisible drift. They stopped double-checking the numbers. They stopped questioning the people closest to them. They assumed the ground beneath them was solid simply because it had been solid yesterday. The problem is that success feels like proof. It feels like confirmation that you finally figured it out, that you've earned the right to ease off. But success isn't proof of permanence, it's only proof that your approach worked under yesterday's conditions. Conditions shift. Competitors adapt. New threats appear that didn't exist while you were still climbing. And if you're not watching for them, because comfort dulled your edge, you won't see them until it's already too late to respond. The most dangerous stretch for any rising person isn't the struggle, it's the plateau right after the first real win. That's when the guard drops. That's when people stop interrogating their own decisions, because everything finally feels like it's working. And that exact mindset is the crack that lets everything collapse later. Machiavelli's point was never to live in constant fear. It was to never mistake comfort for safety, because the two are not the same thing. Someone can feel completely secure while standing in the most dangerous position of their life, simply because success has a way of making danger invisible. It doesn't announce itself. It waits, patiently, for the exact moment you stop looking for it. The people who actually last treat every win as a checkpoint, never a finish line. Because the second you treat it like a finish line, you stop running and everyone else still in the race quietly passes you, while you're not even paying attention that the race is still on. Number 3. Watch what people do the moment you start to rise. Something strange happens the instant you start winning. People show you exactly who they are, whether they mean to or not. It's easy to be kind to someone who isn't a threat yet. The real test starts once your success becomes visible. That's when the masks slip, and you find out who was actually with you versus who was simply waiting nearby until you became useful. Watch closely, and you'll notice a pattern. Some people get quietly distant the moment your rise becomes obvious, not hostile. Just a little slower to respond, a little less enthusiastic about your wins than they were about your struggles. That distance is information. Others do the opposite. They suddenly appear closer, warmer, more available than before. Some of that is genuine. But stay alert here too, because closeness that only shows up after your success isn't automatically loyalty. Sometimes it's positioning. People aren't always drawn to who you are. Sometimes they're drawn to what your rise can now do for them. Then there's a third group, the ones who simply watch in silence, offering neither warmth nor distance. These are often the most important to study, because their reaction tells you the least on the surface and the most underneath it. Silence during someone else's rise usually hides calculation. Not always malice, but always calculation. They're deciding something about you, and you usually won't know what until much later. The people who stood beside you during the climb aren't automatically the same people who deserve to stay close during the rise. It's easy to be good to someone who has nothing you want. It's far harder to stay unchanged towards someone once they have something you could take. Uncomfortable, but true power reveals character faster than almost anything else ever will. Number 4. Choose the people around you with real care. Once you understand how rising changes people, the next lesson becomes obvious. You cannot afford to be careless about who stands closest to you. A person's real strength is often judged not by their own decisions alone, but by the quality of the people they surround themselves with. Those people shape what information actually reaches you, what warnings you hear in time, and what blind spots quietly grow around you without your knowledge. Choose wrong, and you don't just lose an ally, you lose visibility into your own risk. The most common mistake is choosing an inner circle for comfort, instead of value keeping people close because they're familiar and agreeable, not because they add strength, honesty, or protection. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it has a cost that shows up later, exactly when you needed someone to tell you a hard truth, and instead they told you what you wanted to hear. Flatterers are among the most dangerous people a rising person can tolerate, not because flattery feels bad, but because it feels good. And the things that feel good are precisely the things people stop questioning. A flatterer doesn't warn you when you're making a mistake. They agree with it, smile through it, and let you walk straight into consequences you could have avoided if someone honest had spoken up first. There's also a difference between people who are useful and people who are trustworthy, and learning to tell them apart quickly is one of the sharpest skills a rising person can build. Some bring skill, connections, or resources, but their loyalty bends toward whatever benefits them most. Others bring less obvious value on paper, but their loyalty holds steady even when the wind shifts. The people around you aren't just company, they're your early warning system, your reputation, and often your greatest vulnerability, all in one. Number 5. Never reveal everything you're capable of. Here's a lesson most people resist until life forces it on them. Your full strength isn't something everyone has earned the right to see. The more people know exactly what you're capable of, the more precisely they can prepare for it, counter it, or use it against you. Think about it from the other side. If someone knows your exact skill set, your real resources, your actual limits, they know precisely what to avoid provoking, what to imitate, and where your edges are. But if they only ever see part of what you can do, they're forced to guess, and guessing creates hesitation. Hesitation, more often than not, works in your favor. This isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about pacing what you reveal. Once your full capability becomes known, it turns into a fixed reference point people measure themselves against, compete against, or defend against. Keeping part of it unseen keeps you flexible. It keeps your next move harder to predict. Rulers who revealed too much, too soon, lost their advantage before they ever needed it. Once everyone knows your ceiling, they stop being surprised by you, and in a world driven by perception, surprise is one of the most valuable assets you can hold. Number 6. Understand that success creates enemies on its own. This is the hardest truth in the entire philosophy to accept. The more you succeed, the more enemies you naturally accumulate, even without doing anything wrong. Most people assume enemies come from direct conflict, from clear wrongdoing, but success itself, simply by existing, creates friction with people who feel threatened, overlooked, or diminished by comparison. You don't have to attack anyone to become a target. Rising above a certain point is often enough on its own. People measure themselves against others constantly, whether they admit it or not. When someone near them rises sharply, it forces a comparison not everyone can sit with peacefully. Some respond with inspiration, using your rise as fuel for their own, but a significant number respond with resentment instead, because your success becomes a mirror reflecting back what they haven't achieved yet, and resentment, left alone, doesn't stay quiet forever. It turns into distancing, quiet sabotage, or resistance dressed up as something else entirely. This changes how you should interpret opposition. Not every enemy earned that title through something you did to them directly. Many earned it simply by watching you grow while they stayed still. and choosing to blame you for the gap instead of closing it themselves. The price of rising is friction. The price of visibility is scrutiny. Both are unavoidable the moment you stop being ordinary in the eyes of the people around you. Number 7, build something that survives without you. This final truth is the real measure of lasting power, not how high you rise, but whether what you build can stand once you're no longer holding it up. Most people build everything around themselves. Every decision runs through them. Every relationship depends on them personally. It feels like strength while it's happening, but that structure is fragile because the moment that one person disappears by choice, circumstance, or time, everything built around them starts collapsing along with them. True power was never about being irreplaceable. It was about building something strong enough that it didn't need to rely on one person being irreplaceable at all. Someone who trains capable people and creates structure that can function independently leaves behind something lasting. Someone who builds everything around personal control leaves behind chaos the moment they're gone. This is a hard shift for anyone whose rise depended entirely on individual drive. The very thing that got you to the top, total personal control, becomes the exact thing that limits how far what you've built can go and how long it can last. Building something that survives without you means training others well enough that they could replace you if needed. It means creating systems instead of relying purely on instinct. It means letting go of the idea that everything has to run through your hands to be done right. Think of anything that has truly lasted throughout history. It was never built by one person doing everything forever. It was built by one person laying a foundation solid enough that others could carry it forward long after they stepped back. That's the real difference between building an empire and simply building a role that only exists as long as you personally occupy it. So there it is, 7 warnings hidden inside one of history's sharpest minds. And every one of them still applies whether you're building a business, a following, a reputation, or a life you're proud of. Rising is only half the story. Staying, protecting what you've built, and making sure it lasts long after the excitement of the climb fades is the part almost nobody prepares for. Control yourself first, because someone who can't manage their own reactions will eventually let someone else manage their downfall for them. Never let comfort replace discipline, because the moment you stop watching for danger is usually the moment danger finally arrives. Pay attention to how people behave once you start rising, because that behavior tells you more than words ever will. Choose your circle with real care, because the wrong people can quietly cost you everything the right ones would have protected. Hold something back, because full exposure only makes you easier to predict. Expect resistance, because success without friction almost never happens. And above everything else, build something that doesn't collapse the moment you're no longer standing there holding it together, because that's the real line between a temporary win and a lasting legacy. None of this is about becoming cold or ruthless. It's about becoming aware of how power actually works, aware of how people behave once the stakes rise, and aware of what it really takes to build something that survives contact with success instead of being quietly destroyed by it.